I'd like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. Hello everybody, and welcome to another Ancient Forest vlog. Yes, I'm back in the Port Renfrew area, and yes, I'm back to the area that I keep coming back to try and record some old growth forest that is under threat of being logged. And it's funny because this area is much larger than I have explored, but I seem to be in this area that's maybe 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. The logging road where I'm parked is actually not very far from here, which is quite handy if I need extra piece of equipment or to recharge batteries. But I keep finding compositions around this area. This composition here was actually one that I did recognize in the first video that I did from this area. But there were a number of people that say, hey, did you take a photograph of that forest that you walked through at the end of your video, including Darren on the photography pubcast. Incidentally, if any of you have not seen the photography pubcast, highly recommend it. I was a guest, I guess a couple of weeks ago now, and it's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for something to listen to in the background, or you just want to hear talk about photography and other subjects by 6 middle-aged guys, then head on over to the link up here. So as far as this composition goes, I'm really trying to portray some of these beautiful western red cedars, and of course there's a couple of Douglas fir in here as well. These aren't massive trees, but they do have lovely coloration to them, and they're just beautiful trees to look at. This area here would probably be better in perhaps, I'm guessing probably in April, May, when the ferns and the salal are looking a bit fresher. The ferns right now are looking pretty sorry. I know they're very green looking, but they're quite flat. In the spring, they'll come up and they'll be really vibrant, and they'll just fill in some of these messy areas. But who knows if this area will be around in the spring. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure where Teal and Jones want to log. So I'm going to take this photograph. What I love about this image, or this scene, is the placement of the trees. They seem very well placed, and you can kind of separate each one of them without too much busyness in the background. I'm going to do it as a pano because there are quite a lot of white patches in the sky here, and I think that might be a little bit distracting. So I'll show you what I have, and then we'll move on out to something else and see what else we can find around this area. All right, so this is the composition that I've come up with. It's a 65 by 24, and I'm using my widest lens, a 23mm lens. And all I've tried to do is separate the trees from one another the best I can. Now there are a few in there that are overlapping. The other problem that I'm having is I'm getting patches of sky, especially in this area here. The reason why including the sky, especially on a day like today where it's quite cloudy, is such a big deal is that they become huge distractions in the final image. Not all images, but forest scenes like this where everything is predominantly dark and all of a sudden you have this bright area, and of course there's absolutely no detail in there, so you can't really burn it in that much because there's nothing to burn in. So what I'll often do is lighten around that area to try and smooth it out a little bit. If I go into the menu here, image size, and just go up to the regular 4:3 format, you can see that there's a lot of stuff in here that I really don't need to include. The tops of the trees, and of course the bottom is looking a little bit ratty right now, as I said, because the ferns, well, it's March, so they're not looking that great right now. So it's the trees that interest me and the bases of the trunks, so that's what I've based my composition on. So again, it's trying to define what it is that's important to you and then narrowing down your composition as far as you can go, simplifying it to the bare minimum. Forest scenes tend to be busy to start with, so if you can simplify it or get an interaction between one subject to another, then that really helps. Something else that I've tried to do is get quite close to this foreground tree. So it kind of looks a little bit bigger than it really is. It creates a nice foreground. I've also put a polarizer on, but I haven't gone full polarization because I do like some of that sheen on the foliage at the bottom. If I go all the way down so that there's no sheen at all, it does saturate the colors, but to my eye it kind of eliminates some of that depth that I like. So ideally, I just like it to be just a little bit of sheen in there. Anyway, that's what I have. I think it should be okay. I guess we'll see. I mean, the light is okay. It's not fantastic. There's no fog or beams of light coming through the background, so you kind of have to deal with what you have at the time. Anyway, it's not a bad start to the day. The light is really good right now, actually. It is cloudy, but there is some directional light coming through. So there are shadows and brighter areas, which is really nice. So again, I'm concentrating on the western red cedars. There's a whole group of them with a log diagonally through the bottom. And what I really love about it is just all the different textures and different colors. Of course, they're all earthy colors. There's some reds and greens, but they're all different shades, and I'm hoping that'll come through in the image. I'm taking a vertical I am hoping to do a horizontal as well, and perhaps include this western red cedar that's in the foreground. I think it might be too busy, but I just love that branch that's sweeping down. The problem with it is that it's very busy behind that branch. So unless there's a way that I can kind of get rid of that busy background, then it probably won't work. I might be able to take a close-up of it. Perhaps I can do that. So I'm using my 1-200mm, which is the longest lens that I have. It's 5.6, and seems to work quite well. If you're in the market for a new website to either showcase your photography, set up shop and sell your work, or perhaps both, then Squarespace is the perfect solution for you. Squarespace offers an abundance of elegant website templates to choose from that are easy to set up and customize even if you're continuously on the move. It's simple to update your site via the Squarespace app. Pages are quick and easy to set up, and even if you know nothing about setting up a website, Squarespace will have you set up in no time. Interested? Head on over to squarespace.com to set up a free trial, and if it's the platform for you, use the code AdamGibbs for 10% off your first purchase. For this frame, I ended up having to focus stack the scene because of the focal length that I was using, and also because of the wind that was blowing the branches around, especially in the foreground. If I'd stopped down to f16 or f22, then the shutter speed would just be so slow that everything would be blurry. So I ended up using 3 images, one for the foliage in the foreground, 1 image for the middle ground, and then 1 for the background. I did do some dodging and burning on the background trees because the light was quite flat, and the exposure was a little bit tricky because the branches of the trees in the very background there, which are backlit, were very bright, and of course we have the foreground that was very dark. There are some hot spots or slight overexposed areas in those branches in the background, but I don't think it detracts from the overall finish of this photograph. After I'd taken a number of images from quite far back with the 1-200, I decided to get close to the cedars because I really love those textures. So I put on a 32-64mm, and I concentrated on the base of the cedars because I just love those colors, especially the reds in the rotten tree on the right side, and then the mosses in the background, and of course that heavy red cedar on the left side. Now I did have some depth of field issues on this scene as well, so I had to focus stack again. This time I used 3 images. I focused on the foreground, middle ground, and the background, and then just combined them together in Photoshop, and it worked out really well. As far as processing goes, again, the light was quite flat, so I had to do quite a bit of dodging and burning to kind of give the image more 3-dimensionality. And if you're interested in processing videos, I do post them in my membership section of this channel. Right, been searching around for quite some time now, as usual. I think that with this type of forest, what I'm really looking for is, I mean, you want to simplify things, but at the same time, you know, this forest is all about the chaos. And if I can find something that includes some of that chaos and shows the chaos, but have it in an organized way, if that makes sense, then I think that would be really satisfying. The shot that I took last week of the crossed logs, there are some aspects of it that are quite busy, but I actually quite liked that photograph. And the logs that I photographed are actually right here. Now I found this scene here, and it's equally as busy, especially in the background. But the cedar in the foreground is quite nice. It's not too cluttered or busy. It's just behind it. So I don't know. I think this might work. I'm not sure. Now, right now I have it set up as a horizontal, but I think it might work better as a vertical. Of course, that snag that I talked about last week that got in the way is still getting in the way. But yeah, it's a pleasant scene. There's lots of other types of scenes like this over here, but I'm having a really hard time finding a composition out of the chaos. It's the chaos that I really like. Is what I really like about this forest. But of course, the more chaotic, the less easy it is to make photographs. Well, I don't mind saying that that was a hugely challenging couple of days. For whatever reason, I just having a hard time getting shots this time. Could be because I'm just spending too much time in the one area. I have spent a lot of time lately, so perhaps it's time to go somewhere new and try something a little bit different. But in the meantime, I have this Glen Grant 12-year-old Scotch. It's pretty good. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad. And it's a great way to finish off the day. I really need to get myself a decent cup or glass. So cheers. Oh. Tomorrow what I might do is, instead of spending time here, go down to the Eden Grove, which is about 1 kilometer or 2 from here. And a bunch of people have built a trail. So I'm going to go and check that out, and perhaps I'll get some shots from there. Just need a slightly different change of scenery. As I said, it was hugely challenging the last couple of days, primarily because it's just a challenging forest to photograph, but the light has been challenging as well. Anyway, I don't like to complain too much. It's an absolutely beautiful area, regardless of what kind of photographs I get. And I just want to thank you for following along on my little adventure here. And if you enjoyed it, please be sure to give me the old thumbs up. And if you enjoy the content on my channel, please consider subscribing. All right, everybody. Thanks ever so much, and cheers, and hopefully I will see you next week. All right.